Welcome to another episode of OG55. We got Drew, the Disney dude, in the house today on OG55. We're talking all about Disney's comments in regards to affordability. We're also going to talk about Luke Skywalker coming to Galaxy's Edge over here at Disneyland. We're also going to discuss Epic Universe and much, much more on this episode of OG50. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. Very, very interesting conversation today ahead of us. Before we dive right in, Drew, the Disney dude, welcome back on the show, brother.
I am back, but if you guys have noticed, my lighting isn't ideal right now. My main light's broken, so I have like this little backup light. So for all you guys watching, I'm sorry that I don't look like I normally do, but we're gonna make do, and we're gonna have a good conversation regardless.
We're gonna do it. Drew, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Yes, all right, George. It's time for our inside joke. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Drew Disney Dude, and then YouTube and Instagram at Drew the Disney Dude, because X has that limited username thing that I don't love. So over there's no "the," but that's where you can find me.
There he is, Drew the Disney Dude, and George the Italiano with no beard. How you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Not too bad. Just kind of a funny thing, and it's just like you lay down, you're chilling, you're relaxing, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then you zonk out.
Yeah, exactly. You wake up in West Philadelphia, huh, George? Just like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. All right, let's dive into our first topic at hand. This is a juicy one. Very, very juicy. Courtesy of WDWMagic.com. Disney responds to pricing criticism following report on rising theme park costs. It says here, a recent Wall Street Journal report highlights growing internal concerns at Disney about the long-term effects of rising prices at its theme parks. While ticket increases and add-ons like Lightning Lane have driven record revenue, some executives are reportedly questioning whether Disney is reaching the limit of what families are willing to pay. Internal surveys reportedly indicate a decline in guest planning return visits, raising questions about whether the company is sacrificing future loyalty for short-term profits. In what appears to be a response to the article, Disney issued a statement today defending its pricing strategy. Disney Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro and CFO Hugh Johnston emphasized that the company offers a range of pricing options to keep visits accessible, citing ongoing promotions and discount programs. Quote, the number one thing we hear from millions of guests who visit our parks each year is how much a Disney vacation means to them, and we intentionally offer a wide variety of ticket, hotel, and dining options to welcome as many families as possible, whatever their budget, end quote, D'Amaro said. Drew, the Disney dude, what are your thoughts on this response?
Yeah, so Chris and I talked about this a little bit before, we started recording and came on here. But I think that those who are familiar with me are very aware of the fact that most of the time I am strictly reporting on content, or whenever I share an opinion, usually it's positive. This is one of those situations where even me, the other morning when I woke up and I read it, I was kind of like, don't know if I love this. It just felt very defensive rather than accepting the fact that Disney has said that I'll give a little bit backstory on this. So whenever I was at IAPA Expo in 2021, I saw Josh speak, and at the time, that was the first actual conversation I ever had with the man. Had a very nice conversation with him. He was clearly interested in why I was there, because I was like 18 at the time, and IAPA is a very professional theme park convention with everyone from around the industry. Right when we were coming out of the pandemic, this was his first big speech and presentation kind of to the entire industry of what Disney had been doing to get back on track. And he literally made an analogy talking about Disney had a chance to kind of stop the train because of the pandemic, and then they were going to be going full steam ahead of them. So that he kind of acknowledged that they were making some of these bolder choices coming out of the pandemic because the pandemic allowed them to do so. So Josh is aware of the fact that he himself has made bold decisions. And I think we're all aware of that. Even right now, Disney's making very strategic business decisions with IPs, lands, and attractions over the next 5-10 years. We're seeing Muppets close for Monsters Inc. We're seeing Tom Sawyer Island and the Rivers of America close for Cars and Villains Land. There's no shock and surprise of what Disney is doing, even if people don't necessarily understand it. So that's a little bit of backstory. So that's why I say that Josh is aware of the changes that he and his team and everyone have made. So to see them say like, yes, we're aware of, we're in an inflationary economy and the economy hasn't been strong and people kind of need incentive to come to the parks and we want people to feel welcome, kind of going back to Walt Disney's quote when Disneyland opened in 1955 about everyone feeling welcome at this place. Right when he says that, but then right after that, they say, oh, but we have all these deals and offers. It's kind of like rubbing me the wrong way. And like I said, it feels a little offensive rather than I said to Chris before we came on here, but if he was like, yes, we understand that we are in an inflationary economy and we've heard your feedback. And that's why I'm having discussions and meetings with my teams right now about, later this year and in the coming years, how we can do even more to make our guests feel appreciated and welcome. And that's what we're going to do. I think that would have gone a lot farther rather than to point out what you already have. Because if you're pointing out what you already have and people still aren't happy, then you have to do more. And I think that's what Disney needs to do right now to win back the morale for the guests. And if the morale for the guests is high, then that's going to impact cast members positively as well. So I think there's a lot of things that are connected here that I hope they do that they're not doing yet.
Yeah, well said, Drew. Well said. We talked pre-game, pre-show, and you got a great point where you were saying sometimes Disney sort of like overshares when they shouldn't, and when they undershare when they should, and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, this comment didn't feel right. It didn't, and they were kind of talking about how like the prices haven't been on the lower tier. They haven't been raised since like 2019, but it's like, but since 2019, they've added like paid fast passes with like Lightning Lane and things like that, those add-ons. So it's like, that's great. You haven't increased the low tier, but you've increased every other aspect of that Disney vacation around it. So how much are families that buy that lower tier stuff, how much is that actually saving them at the end of the day? Because now they're paying all this other stuff, so it's interesting.
I think something that, we talked about as well is if you look at that lower tier Disneyland ticket, like you just said, they haven't raised it since 2019, which I'll give them credit for.
Yeah.
But I haven't done the research on this, so I can't speak to it fully. But the question I ask Disney is, if you're looking at a 365-day year, how many days out of that 365-day year is that lowest price ticket to Disneyland actually available? Because if, for example, 100 days out of the year, it's $50 more, then it's not going to be benefiting people. And if they're purposely keeping that lower ticket price to say that we haven't raised it, then it doesn't feel very genuine and authentic. It feels like they're just keeping it to say that they have it rather than actually intending to want people to save money. And that's what I need to look into, because I'm very curious on how many days you can actually get that cheap ticket.
Yeah, well said, well said. Italiano, what do you think?
Yeah, it's I think it's funny, like with Demaro being like in Demaro fashion, we mentioned it so many times on the channel where, he seems like a really cool guy. I got to meet him, got to have a selfie with him. He seems like someone that I can, maybe sit at the bar, have a drink, have a conversation with. He's a very, personable kind of guy. He knows how to, work a crowd. He knows how to talk to people, but when push comes to shove, I feel like when he gets backed into a corner with certain things, these are the times where I question the fact of that if he was to step foot as the CEO, could he handle it? And unfortunately, these are the moments it's like, how could he? If you can't really choose your wording of how you're handling as a parks chairman, how can you handle yourself as CEO? And unfortunately, I feel like he kind of dropped the ball with something like this. Right before we got on, like a lot of the stuff that he brought up, as Drew was saying, the offers that's already available, majority of them are for residents, whether, you're a local or what have you. And there was also an offer that the day that he mentioned it, it was expiring that day. And it's like, you look at it and it's like, okay, you're telling me something that's already out, as Drew was saying. If we're not saying this is working, why are you showing it to us? We don't want examples. We want to see change, so it's kind of like an up and down roller coaster with him on decision makings. And I don't know. He's still, as I said, I like him as a person, but I just don't know, like, moving forward, how he's going to be, even in this role, let alone him even trying for CEO.
Yeah. What you have to be really careful, like, if he's CEO, because he's one of the top contenders for sure, top 3 for sure. You have to be really careful with this kind of stuff, because once you become CEO, you're under even a bigger microscope. We saw that with Bob Chapek, and how misspeaking or PR blunders can really get you in trouble, especially with that Hollywood crowd. So it's one thing to be talking to like theme park fans and stuff, but when you're a CEO and you're kind of handling the everything of the company, there's a lot more scrutiny. So it's a tough place to be. Now, here's the thing too. I also understand, to be fair to Josh or to Disney in general, I also understand they are turbocharging. They are investing a lot right now in these parks, right? Disneyland Resort has all kinds of stuff going on with Pandora and Coco and Avengers and all this stuff, and the 70th. And Walt Disney World has the Tropical Americas, a new nighttime parade at Magic Kingdom, Villains Land, Cars Land. So there's a lot of investments. So I understand the need to sort of offset some of these investments and to kind of bring more money in to offset those investments. But I just think that, like, yeah, there's a way to do it and there's a way to talk about it and there's a way that makes you look like you're kind of being cagey about it. And I think this looked a little bit more on the former, you know what I'm saying? But what say you, Drew, but in regards to like the investments that they're putting in regards to how that ties into like these price increases?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as you were talking, I had thought of something where I think they are accurate on with what they've said. But again, I think we can agree that this one, we're not on board with it, and it just doesn't feel right and a little bit tone deaf. But to add on to what you said, I think when, we'll talk about this more later. So I don't want to talk about it too much now, but I'll connect this a little bit to Epic Universe. And everyone's like, well, what is Disney doing for Epic Universe? Well, I think that one of the situations where Disney has every single right to talk about what they've done before, kind of like with what they're doing with these ticket offers now, is the investment that they've done into the parks. Not even just right now and what's going to be opening, 2027, 28, 29, but the things that we've seen open within the last decade that are still world-class, top-tier quality, even though we've already had them. And I know that we do social media, so it might sound a little bit hypocritical, but I think a big part of social media that I don't like is how we're always looking for this next new shiny e-ticket or food offering or something that we just want flash in front of our eyes to talk about. But when you look at Toy Story Land and Pandora, Galaxy's Edge, Runaway Railway, even New Fantasyland, it's been like 13 years and New Fantasyland is still great. Yeah. So it's like there's been so many things done at these parks that people still love today, and things that still have weights today, like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and even Tron Light Cycle Run. Like, yes, it took a long time for it to open, but that was because they wanted it to open at a specific time so that they were spreading out the expenses across multiple fiscal quarters. So if I'm looking at the investment, yes, you do make a fantastic point that they're spending billions of dollars. And when a company's spending billions, they're going to want to make as many billions so that the profits are still strong, even when they're investing so much. But I would even go even further on that and then tie that into what Disney has done before. And when you're looking at all these things around the parks that are there that are still phenomenal, like Flight of Passage, and then I can go around the corner and I can go on Kilimanjaro Safari and see these new lions that have just arrived, and then I can go around the corner and see a baby tiger. Yeah, Walt Disney World is still world class, and the value is still fantastic. I could go even further in saying why Walt Disney World is still a good value by comparing it to like a Taylor Swift concert, for example, or like the Super Bowl game. When I was watching the Super Bowl the other night, they said the average ticket is $5,800 and the stadium is sold out. So you never see people complaining about how expensive those things are, right? But whenever it's Disney, then it's suddenly the end of the world. So I do think there's a double standard sometimes with this industry, specifically around Disney, because Disney is, like you said, Chris, it's under the microscope, and Disney is always being held to this standard that other people aren't. Um, but I just think that if people are going to complain about Disney, well, if you want to give constructive criticism, absolutely, like taking away Magical Express or taking away Free Fast Pass, that's 100% valid.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at a Taylor Swift concert being $1,000 or a Dodger game being $250 and parking being $75, and no one talks about that or complains about that, there is a double standard there, wider in the world outside of this industry.
Yeah, well said, Drew. I'm glad you brought that up because that's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. I think that there's sort of like this trend almost where it's like it's trendy to kind of complain about Disney and their pricing, even with the normies.
It gets the engagement, it gets the clicks, yeah.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. It gets engagement, gets clicks. And so a lot of people kind of overlook like these sports games. Like you were saying, the Super Bowl, you were saying like $5,800 per ticket or whatever. Like that's insane. That's absolutely insane. And, Taylor Swift, or, I mean, you go to Vegas, it's expensive. It's like $12 beers, so a lot of entertainment is like that. So to be fair to Disney, and a lot of people don't really put this other stuff under that microscope. I never hear sports fans really, or people like this normies talking about that, how it's so expensive to go to these concerts and these sports events. But the minute with Disney, it's like, oh gosh, Disney is like, this, that, and the other. So yeah, I mean, we're fair here. And look, while Josh DeMaro's comments, like we all agree here, very tone deaf. It was a horrible response. To be fair to Disney, I mean, a lot of these other entities and industries are pretty overpriced as well. So what say you, George? You're kind of you do a lot of vacationing and stuff like that. I mean, mostly you do like Disney, but I mean, what do you notice based on like what other industries and other stuff are doing?
Yeah, for me, it's like a lot of picking and choosing because of what Drew was mentioning about concerts and what have you. There are people who are avid concert goers. They'll go and they'll see Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, and everything. And those tickets you're paying triple digits for what, a 2.5 hour concert, which is fine if that's what you like, but also that's a hefty price for 2.5 hours, and there's other things that go on, and you put money out, you spend money on merchandise, on food, you add all that up. It's basically a Walt Disney World vacation package at the end of the day.
Well, you could go on you can go on a Disney cruise for $5,800, and that only gets you the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
For exactly.
And I've constantly said this too, where it depends on like what you like. I could look at it and say, oh my gosh, like going to a concert for that price is ridiculous. But yeah, I'd be willing to put out $6,000 for a 7-night, Disney cruise in the Caribbean. But that's just to my liking. That's to my preference. But also to on Disney's behalf, so many projects that are on the horizon as of right now with Walt Disney World, with Disneyland, even the Disney Cruise Line. You have to expect some push and pull that where is the money coming from? I mean, this is huge investment. Us as the consumer have to be able to pay for that back of the money that's Disney's putting on. I think a lot of people don't think of that. They say, oh yeah, we want all these park expansions, we want new rides, we want new shows, we want a new attractions. Well, okay, that's great, but don't expect that prices are going to get cut in half. If anything, it's going to raise more. So they people also have to take that into consideration too. But yeah, I feel for Disney in the sense that they have to do what they have to do because it's a company first. But it was just more so DeMaro's execution on the matter at hand.
Yeah, Drew, did he mention anything about the investments they're putting in? Was that part of his argument?
Yeah, let me pull up the article real quick. Okay. He did mention they mentioned right here, I think I mentioned the Lions, and they mentioned like the concerts at the festivals out here at Epcot. He did mention the 70th anniversary of Disneyland and Season of the Force coming up. And also how you can save on some hotels at Disneyland during the 70th. So they are mentioning that. But again, I think that we are aware of these investments cost billions when you're looking across the world too. That's something that we'll talk about Epic more a little bit later. But Disney is global. Universal and Comcast are global too, but not to the scale global that Disney is. So they're not even on the same level there. But also to add on to what George said too, when you're looking at a 2.5 hour concert, awesome, right? Or like, I'm a diehard Dodgers fan, so I'm not trying to be like, don't do this. Would I drop a couple $100 to go see a Dodger game to watch Shohei Ohtani? Absolutely. I love the Dodgers just as much as I love Disney. But when I'm looking at the value of a 12-hour day at Magic Kingdom, that's more value there, simply just based on time, like objectively versus subjectively.
Right.
If you show up to Magic Kingdom at 8 in the morning and you rope drop and you have a strategy and you're there till 9 p.m., you get to see Happily Ever After, and you're spending $180 on a one-day ticket, yes, $180 for one day is a lot. But if you go in just with a little bit of planning and a little bit of knowledge of what you want to do throughout your day, you can absolutely get $180 worth of value in a 12 or 13-hour day at Magic Kingdom compared to a 2 or 3 hour baseball game or a concert that with a sports game, you don't even know what the outcome's going to be. Your team could get their butt kicked and you could be disappointed. Or with a concert, if they don't play a song or they don't bring out that special artist. So yeah, even at the
and
parks,
that's when I ask for my money back.
And yeah, I get at the parks that like there could be something closed for refurbishment or a parade gets canceled or rides down. So that's everything in life. But again, 2 hours versus 12 hours, that's where I look at these things too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a lot of like, I think like on this panel today, we're kind of like, we're making a better argument for Disney than Disney made for them. Like you can
it's all
kind
about
of like
how you say it.
Exactly, Drew. That's exactly it. Like, it's not necessarily like, okay, hey, look, you know what? He could have said, like he mentioned the 70th, he mentioned the festivals and stuff, but I would have leaned into like, hey, you know what? We're completely reimagining, this whole area in Animal Kingdom. We're building a 15-acre whatever Pandora at DCA with a brand new Coco Dark ride, and we got 2 new lands coming to Magic Kingdom. Really lean into those investments and kind of say this is part of the reason why tickets are going up, because we are also we're taking that money the money from the guests, but we're reinvesting in a serious way. I think there's a way to kind of do this, and I just think he dropped the ball big time with how he kind of packaged it, which is interesting because, like you mentioned, George, with the whole CEO succession thing, DeMauro has to be really, really careful right now with that, because I do think that right now, I think Dana Walden is kind of in the lead. I think it's kind of hers to lose. So he's got to really impress, and he can't really afford to have these missteps with the PR, especially since we all have PTSD, after Chapek with PR. So it's kind of interesting. So I don't know. We'll see how this whole thing shakes out. Drew, any final thought before we move on to Epic Universe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would just kind of end on the fact that, to add on what you said, Chris, if he was like, yeah, guys, I think that something that kind of shocked me with this is back in August, Disney made fun of themselves at the Disney Experiences Showcase, and everyone was on board with it, right? When they were making fun of the dragon burning down in Fantasmic and the Yeti being broken, and Deadpool was just throwing shots at him, right? And one of the lead guys on Disney's public relations team, who oversees everything, one of his things that I've heard him say before is you always want to bring a sense of humor into work. So he's a big part of that. I'm a big fan of him. And for all of you guys out there who are watching, I'm not going to say his name just out of respect for him, but he is heavily involved with the things that are doing right now on the Disney park side. So going forward, I think we're going to see more of this personal side of Disney, to where it feels like humans are doing these things. But I think that, kind of to add on to what you said, is that if he had leaned into all these investments, and yes, we are spending billions of dollars, around the world. I think people are sometimes blind to the resorts that they don't visit. Like, I'm always thinking about Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Disneyland, Disney World, cruise line, everything, right? People are not only blind to the things that they don't experience because they don't care about them, but also the fact that I think that Disney just could do some smaller tweaks that would instantly boost guest morale that's not going to affect your bottom line in a massive way. Like, if they just brought back the Kiss Goodnight at Magic Kingdom and brought out all the characters in their little like nighttime outfits, and there was just like a little new projection show on Cinderella Castle, the Disney Live Entertainment could put together in a few months to kind of send people home and just have one more final memory for the day that could turn into core memories for kids and their families to be like, oh yeah, we want to stay till Magic Kingdom till 10 p.m. at closing to see the Kiss Goodnight. Well, not only would that be a good memory, but actually might make the company money, because if they're staying at the park, then they might go into the Emporium or get an extra snack. So I think that there could be things like that, or just adding some of this Streetmosphere back, like the Citizens of Hollywood, or even bringing a brand new Streetmosphere offering. Like if you think to the Streetmosphere stuff, everyone's always talking about the things that have been taken away, like the Citizens of Hollywood. But what's stopping them from creating brand new characters in Magic Kingdom that roam Main Street and adding some backstory there? Something brand new, but would not hurt the bottom line in a massive way that people would be like, yes, this is the Disney that I know and I love. So we're not necessarily asking them to be like, well, if you're going to increase prices, we'll build another $500 million Cosmic Rewind. I think if you start off small and you continue, the small is going to add to big. The little things will contribute in a way that I think will reach bigger and bolder and great ways that they might not even expect, largely due to social media with how easily things can reach. Like sometimes I forget how many people see my tweets. Like the fact that I could tweet something right now, like if Disney right now messaged me and said, hey, tomorrow we are announcing that we are bringing the Citizens of Hollywood back to Hollywood Studios, that could be seen by up to 500,000 people on Twitter. Wow. So, and then that goes out and reaches other people. They share it and they text it to their friends, and then someone else posts it on their social media, and it just creates a wave. So I think that if I was Disney right now, I would start by feeling a little bit more human and a little more personal. Start with the smaller things. And then if those smaller things see success and people are happy with that, that's where you can maybe go into the bigger things, because the smaller things will benefit you in the long run, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, I love that human element. And you were absolutely right, Drew. With the D23, when they made fun of themselves.
So good. I was dying.
I was dying. It was so good. And it takes the sting out of the mistakes that, you know, when you do that, right? It kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know if you ever saw 8 Mile with Eminem.
I have not.
A great movie, but he actually, when he was doing his rap battles, he would actually utilize that tactic a lot, where he would kind of make fun of himself a little bit. So it would kind of defang his opponent. Like he'll say, like, yeah, I'm white. Yeah, I live in a trailer. I'm broke. I live with my mom. So by the time he handed the mic over to his opponent, the opponent had nothing.
There's no fuel left. Yeah.
There's no fuel left. And it's like, I kind of feel like they kind of did that a little bit with D23, where they made fun of themselves, whereas like there was nowhere to go. The fans were like, you know what I'm saying? In terms of like, that criticism, I think they would handle that beautifully. And I think they should lean into that a lot more, that human element, a little more teasing, a little more acknowledgement that, hey, you know, we messed up. Actually, Universal kind of does this sometimes. Like they're more meta with stuff, like on their social media and stuff like that. So I think it's a smart move to kind of bring that human element to it. What say you, George? What do you think about that?
And I think it's so funny. I mean, yeah, that was like so clever enough for them to do that, and to utilize a character like Deadpool, like of all people, like he was the perfect character to utilize for those kind of moments. And it kind of broke up where you had a little bit of an entertainment quality that you're used to Disney producing, like while they're announcing all these big projects and everything, and then here comes Deadpool. It's like, well, I hate to rain on your parade, but like here's like this and this, and how come I'm not getting this and this? And it's like, and he puts it into like a musical number and everything. I mean, it was perfect, honestly.
Well said. The photo of him wearing the Minnie Mouse ears, like
so perfect.
It was so stupid that it was funny, and I think that that's kind of like a perfect example of how something small turned into something massive. I can literally tie an example to the point that I just made. So whenever Deadpool debuted at Avengers Campus, right, they probably expected it to be popular, but I don't think that they expected it to reach as many millions of people that it did. So that's when they were probably like, you know, what if we bring out Deadpool at D23? Because for the last couple of months, he's been so popular at Avengers Campus. Right. And then once you're doing it at D23, it automatically went worldwide because all eyes were on D23 because it's the event, right? Everyone from the entertainment industry to the theme park industry, everyone around the world that knows about D23 happening. So when you take something from the parks that was popular and then put it on a global stage and you're making fun of yourself on that big of a stage, everyone just took it the right way. And that's what I really, really, really hope they do more of going forward, because it's like we felt seen, and just to add some humor, it's so good. So
it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And you know, we're critical of Josh a lot here on the channel, and we're honest about it. But that D23 panel for him was such a home run. Yep. I mean, between all the cool announcements, the way they handled the way they were picking on themselves, it was like that perfect balance of just everything. Like George and I were walking out there just skipping. We were so freaking happy. It was amazing.
And it was amazing. And I remember all three of us were on here having a conversation. And Drew, you were saying, I'm having like some worries of like how they're gonna produce this show. Yeah. Is it gonna be like heavily geared just music, and then it's like we're not gonna get any kind of announcement? But the way Disney did it, it was so clever that when they had an announcement, sometimes they would have like a performance before the official announcement or after, and it would be a song from a movie that's tied to the project. And I thought that they handled that so well, because I was worried about that too. I thought, oh my gosh, is this going to be like a Disney and concert kind of orchestra kind of thing, and then that's it, and then here's this and here's that. Okay, we're wrapping it up, folks. And it's like, but the way that they did it was very clever and well executed.
Yeah, I was getting a little nervous when we had like 7 songs from the Mad Tea Party, but
Mad Tea Party, oh my god!
Once we got through those 7 songs, we were off to the races. We actually got a lot of good announcements.
It was funny how it started late with them, and then like Josh came out, and then it was John Stamos, and I'm like, more music already? Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I remember, like you said, George, I uploaded we had the conversation here, and then I did like a predictions video on my YouTube channel, and the first 11 minutes of that video were me talking about how freaking concerned I was. But again, I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong when I want to be wrong. I was like, please prove me wrong. And they did. And now we know what's happening. So
yeah, well said. Well, let's pivot now to Epic Universe.
Let's go down the road here.
Really quick before we go to Epic Universe, I just have to say, so for the next D23, we just have to endure another 7 songs of Mad Tea Party before we get.
Absolutely. It's a tradition now, George. You got to do it. I guess it was a bad time to quit drinking, though. I probably shouldn't have quit, considering that. So we're gonna pivot. We're gonna pivot now to Epic Universe. Now, we only have a few more months until this park is open. Believe it or not, it's crazy. It opens in May. We're already in mid-February, so it's coming up fast and furious. See what I did there? But it's coming up fast and furious. But I want to give a shout out to a friend of the channel, Alia. Ollie has been really great with like she does a lot of this Google Trends, like kind of seeing what people's search patterns are with Google. And she wrote this to me or our little group chat the other day saying, good and bad news with Epic Universe's Super Bowl ad. The good news is awareness has increased for the park. The most searches are no longer from Florida. So it seems like outside of Florida, people are now searching for Epic Universe. But she says here, the bad news, it still pales in comparison next to Walt Disney World. She goes on to say, this is just the data from the past day. More response to Walt Disney World's I'm going to Disney, end quote, NFL type ad than Universal with the new theme park ad. So even with Universal building this new park, more people are searching the I'm going to Disney World thing, according to Google. Now, this is the thing, because I've actually talked to like with my 9-to-5 job. I've talked to like normies I work with, and I've mentioned Epic Universe, and most of them have no idea this is even a thing. So I want to start with you, Drew. Like, we're going in, we only have a few more months till this park opens. There's a lot riding on this thing. The fandom has blown the expectations for this thing. Like this is like the second coming of Christ in theme park form, right? Basically. And so there's a lot riding on this thing. What is your take on, we only have a few months. Will this thing live up to this, or are we looking at a little bit of a muted, summer for them compared to what the expectations are?
Do I have a permission to go on a rant here?
Oh, absolutely. By all means.
Angry Drew come out? No, just kidding.
Let's go. All right.
Drew,
I'm going to. All right. Today is February 11th, 2025, when we're recording this. Putting this on the record, you guys can clip this, you can save this, you can bookmark it. All right. We are recording this exactly 100 days until Epic Universe opens. Universal, for some reason, has still not put single and 2-day tickets on sale. Why?
So you still got to buy those packages, huh? That include the other two?
I think that's a big part of it. You spend $8 million on a Super Bowl commercial. Searches go up. People are like, what's this? Oh, I can't buy a ticket. All right, your life continues.
Yeah.
Do you want people to come or not? Like,
Right.
you can only reach so many people through social media without that global stage. And what better way to do it than the Super Bowl? So in my opinion, I think the biggest blunder we've seen for this entire park so far is that to not immediately promote your single day tickets or some limited time discounts to get people to book to come this summer. Now, this is where I'm going to go on my rant. All right, bookmark
Do
this,
it.
clip it. I don't care. Like I talked about earlier when I was talking about Walt Disney World's previous investments, I think people dramatically underestimate the power of the Walt Disney Company, even with this rocky last 5 years that we've had. Yes, Walt Disney World is just starting construction on some of these projects right now, but even without all these new things, parents and families still have the emotional attachment to Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, the Fab Five, all these characters, these movies, these franchises, these stories, more than anything that Universal will ever offer.
Yeah.
That's my hot take that anyone can bookmark and come after me for. Every single day when I'm on TikTok, I will see multiple videos of people with their kids and children at Disney, and these kids' faces just light up seeing these characters. Never once do I see anything like that for Universal. When I am seeing things for Universal, it's people around my age or your guys' age going on roller coasters. It's just a different audience. And the fact that Disney is offering even more things that are going to connect to families this summer automatically is the win for them. That's another one of my hot takes is that I'm glad that Disney doesn't have a massive new e-ticket opening this year because I think it would just get overlooked with Epic in the social media space. That is a nighttime parade at the world's most visited theme park, at the world's most popular theme park destination is all you really need. And that's not even including Hollywood Studios where you have a villain show in The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid, like, come on, dude. Any little girl's gonna go in there, be sitting on the edge of her seat, flapping her legs like a tail. Anytime I go into the Frozen show, the parents get the jokes out of the mature jokes, but the kids, whenever Elsa comes out, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I'll just be watching the families sometimes just to see, like, getting a vibe of what's going on. Like, everything at Epic Universe will be great, and I'm not knocking the park by any means, but Disney and everyone who's like, Disney's gonna really take a hit here with Epic Universe opening. I'm like, you guys are just living in another world. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I know everyone's gonna be like, oh, your username's Drew the Disney dude. You work with Disney. Of course you're gonna say that. But reality is I'm taking myself out of the situation here because me personally, I am excited for Epic Universe. I think that Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment, is going to be one of the best attractions in the world. I think that is going to be phenomenal. And the fact that you have fireworks behind Helios Grand, and just like we saw today with that little animatronic dragon and How to Train Your Dragon, and the lighting and the fountains and Harry Potter, Nintendo, there's a lot of strong things here. But I think that the effects of Epic Universe aren't going to be immediate. I think that that's actually going to be about 5 years down the road. Once this park makes its name around the world a little bit, once we even see what these rides are, the promotion that they're doing for Epic still doesn't tell us anything about what these things are.
Yeah.
Like in one of their recent commercials, they just revealed that there's this Rumpant that's in a chase with the ride vehicle. Like, that's in the promo material. But the only reason that I know that is because I'm looking at this commercial from a theme park nerd's point of view. The average family that's watching this commercial during the Super Bowl isn't going to know what an Rumpant is from Harry Potter. Not just Harry Potter, but the Harry Potter films that flopped at the box office. If Disney I'll put it in perspective, right? When you think about the Fantastic Beasts films, they were horrible. They sucked. And Universal's building a land around that right now. And everyone's saying, look at this, they're recreating it from the movie, and it's being applauded. But if Disney was building a land based around Wish right now, they'd be being ripped to shreds because Wish didn't do well at the box office. So whether people want to admit it or not, there is a massive double standard between any other company theme park wise and Disney. And Disney's going to be just fine. But because Disney isn't opening this massive new ride, it's Doomsday. But the reality is Disney is doing a lot more than Universal is. It's just not in a single park. It's all around the world. And don't
Right.
even get me started on the fact that whenever it rains at Epic Universe, there's only 3 attractions that can operate. And it rains almost 200 days a year in Orlando. Who approved that decision?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, Drew. And I'm glad you bring this up because a lot of people don't really like dive into the nitty gritty when it comes to Universal, right? They don't really, I don't know what it is, but there's this hesitancy to sort of criticize decisions Universal makes. I think largely because I think people want to like stick it to Disney, and they want to teach Disney a lesson, which is great. You want to have Disney be nervous because you want to have that competition. At the same time, though, we shouldn't all be basically Universal's doormat and let them do whatever they want. Because that's a great point. At Epic Universe, there's only like a handful of rides, 3 rides, I think you were saying, that can actually operate in the rain. This is Florida we're talking about. I remember Disney got a lot of crap when they built Toy Story Land with no shade.
Yep.
And rightfully so. But where is the conversations on social media about this park? You don't really see it, right?
There's literally no shade at Epic Universe. Like they have like a few canopy, like tent things, but they look cheap. Like if you look at the aerial photos from Bio Reconstruct of the Wolfman coaster in Dark Universe, those like tent things that are over the coaster track, I'm sorry, they look horrible. Like really, really bad. If Disney did anything like that to cover up space, they'd be ripped to shreds.
Oh yeah,
So,
no,
yeah,
100%. 100%. And the expectations, and I've been saying this for so long, Drew, like you don't even know, like so long. I don't think the fan expectations, the fan rhetoric for this park has done the park any favors. I've been saying, I think the Epic Universe, like you were saying, like I think it's gonna be a great park. I'm super excited for like Dark Universe, all this stuff. But here's the thing. There are so many elements, like the Donkey Kong coaster, for example. That thing, I mean, I remember seeing people on social media like a year plus ago saying like the Donkey Kong coaster is like the selling point for them to want to go to Epic. Then they released that POV, and we all know POVs, the Tiana thing, Disney dropped the ball with the POV for that. But honestly, I'm sure it's a great ride. I'm sure it's a fun kid coaster. But honestly, is this ride, based on what we've seen so far, is this going to live up to the fan expectation of being the selling points for Epic Universe? Not even close.
No.
I mean, not even close. Like, obviously, we're willing to give this thing a chance, and we will.
And we're going to have fun on it for sure. But again,
for sure,
if you're thinking about a selling point and people are looking at these static figures, no.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of elements here that even Super Nintendo World, we have a big part of that already here in California. It's a cute land, but it's another Toontown, essentially. It's nothing super groundbreaking, super like, wow, that's amazing. It's Toontown. It really is. With actually, to be honest with you, a lesser attraction with Mario Kart. I think Runaway Railway is way stronger of an attraction than Mario Kart. Way stronger. So there's issues going into this thing for sure. On top of the fact that, like Alia was saying to us, the Google searches aren't great. There you go. That's so good. Oh my God, I love that, bro. That is amazing.
I love Runaway Railway. I will be biased towards it till the day I die.
It's a fantastic attraction. But add all that on top of the fact that, like, the normies aren't really aware of this park just a few months out of its opening. Yeah. So I think there's issues here. And again, I know there's going to be fans that are going to say, "Oh, you're crapping on Universal." We're really not. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. But I mean, I think that, like, if it comes off super negative, it's just because I don't feel like anyone else really discusses this stuff. And it's good to talk about it and kind of air it out, because really these conversations are not being had. And honestly, I don't think it helps Universal just to pretend like these issues don't exist. Universal is actually a very receptive company. When they know fans don't like something or whatever, they tend to respond, right? So pretending things aren't a problem, hiding it or brushing it under the rug isn't helping Universal. It's better that they know, hey, you know what, Universal, this park needs more rides that can operate in the rain. Hey, Universal, maybe this, maybe that, and like let them know, because feedback's important. And when we just sort of smile and just love all of it because it's not Disney, that's not helping Universal either at all. What say you, Josh?
It's like people throw Universal a invisible bone, so to speak, where they know what some of the decisions Universal is making is not the great choice, but they'll still protect them and find excuses for them just so that they can down Disney. That's all it is. They know Universal could be in the wrong for certain things, but rather than call them out, to always give it like one up over Disney, they'll say, hey, you know what? But it's Universal, they're allowed to do that stuff. But Disney, no, God forbid. And you had mentioned with Super Nintendo World, I've been in there a few times. It's cool. It's aesthetically pleasing, but it's like it's nothing where like I want to spend like my whole day in there. And I think it is an impressive IP that Universal has for a land.
Right.
But the thing, and Nintendo is very popular. It really is. We have tons of mutual friends that are, gamers. They're into, Super Nintendo. They're into Mario. They're into Donkey Kong. But the one thing that intellectual property, for me anyways, like if you put it up against with Toontown, is it doesn't have the heart. When you go into Toontown, as comparing to like Super Nintendo World, you have that heart where you see Mickey and Minnie's houses, and you have the attraction of Runaway Railway, and you have all the characters where their natural settings are. There's just something about it because there's a history with those characters, and it's a very organic, natural.
It feels lived in. Yeah,
exactly. Where when you walk into Super Nintendo World, it's like, okay, I'm stepping into a video game, which is cool, but I just feel like with a lot of things without the heart of Disney, so to speak, and that's where no matter what Universal can produce, which it's going to be amazing. I'm going opening day to Epic Universe, but it's never going to be on the caliber to what Disney can produce for me.
Well, I think for a lot of people, though, to be fair, because I think Disney is a cultural beast, where like generations have really grown up with Disney, and the parks are really like a rite of passage for a lot of people. Like your parents took you to the parks when you were a kid, and their parents took them to the parks when they were a kid, and you'll take your kids, and it goes on and on and on. But it's like it's so culturally ingrained that it's different. It's a whole nother animal compared to that of Universal. Like you were saying, Drew, like meeting Mickey and Minnie. Yeah. It's a whole nother situation than meeting, the Minions or something. It's just a different thing. Or going to Isles of Adventure and the Madagascar characters are on like ATVs, or something. It doesn't have the same kind of it's just different. And it's not bad necessarily. It's just that Disney has that different connection to, I think, our culture generally. I think it has much more of an emotional connection. And I think that you're right, Drew, that it's really going to be tough for Universal to kind of break through that, because this park will open and it will likely be busy when it opens, but it's not going to, I don't think it's going to do the damage to Disney World like that people think it's going to do. And I think it's no chance. I mean, it's becoming more and more apparent that this is not going to do that. And the ticketing thing is a huge factor too, Drew. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people don't care about the other two parks. All they want to do is Epic Universe a la carte, and Universal's not letting them do that. And they're not letting them do that because they're so worried about the cannibalization of the other two.
And I want to cut you off here because like we kind of started this conversation with, saying Josh Tomorrow's comments aren't great about what Disney has been doing with some of these offers. Well, I could say the same thing about Universal right now, locking your brand new theme park behind a massive paywall at the vacation package. Right. Like, imagine if Disney opened a fifth gate right now and they were saying the only way that you could spend one day at our park is by spending at least $350 on a 3-day ticket. That would reach nationwide news, right? But Universal does it, and they're like, "Oh, that makes sense because we need to keep crowds down," right? So, like, people will always twist it to fit Universal's narrative. Also, the fact that they didn't even say when those tickets were going for sale on Universal, and it was at like 5:30 in the morning.
Right. Well, and then you're right. The justification is we got to keep crowds down. We got to mitigate that demand. Well, what do you think Disney's been doing this whole time? Like, I mean, Disney is met with the same problem, even worse. Yeah. So, and this is the thing. Reality sets in for a lot of these companies, and it's like people want to like crap on Disney for doing that, for mitigating that demand. Now that Universal is being shown some pretty good demand for this park, now they're having to behave just like Disney.
Yeah.
And it's like no one's calling them out on it though.
Yeah.
and it's frustrating. It really
I
is
agree.
frustrating.
And,
So
like,
And if you honestly look at the demand of some of these things, I called the day the Epic Universe packages were going on sale. I held on the phone. I actually called on the phone and spoke to a Universal team member. I only waited 7 minutes. The day of everything dropped for Epic Universe, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on hold for like 5 hours. This is going to be a mess. Nope, 7 minutes. Booked the package. The whole thing took like 15 minutes, and I thought, wow, okay. And then I go on the Disneyland website, and I'm on hold, not on hold, in the virtual queue, 2.5 hours waiting for Oogie Boogie tickets.
I know. And that, George, and that's exactly what we're talking about. When Alia is saying to us, the normies they're not really searching this park. So it shows when you're calling up to buy your tickets and you get right through. I mean, is that good? I don't think that's great,
Yeah.
And,
People will say, "Oh, Universal's offering such a great experience to book for this park," but like you guys said, you're waiting that long to get an Oogie Boogie ticket, or I'm walking into Epcot to get my freaking pass holder magnet, and I'm waiting 20 minutes for that. There's I'm sorry. Whenever I think that people, like, whenever they look at Disney and Josh is like, "Yeah, we're still on another different caliber above anyone else,"
yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, of course, Josh is saying that. This is his park, and you can't." It's a fact. People just don't want to accept it. And like, if you're really looking at, like, we want to be fair to Universal. Like, I am excited for Epic Universe. I want to make that very clear, even if you guys don't believe me. But like, when I'm looking at these individual attractions, I'm looking at it in a sense of, not for me, not for you guys. I'm looking at this as, is a family that's spending thousands of dollars to come to Orlando saying, yes, this will make a great experience for our family to go to this new theme park, right? When you're looking at Nintendo, right, the unique offering there, in a sense, is the IP and Mario Kart. But Mario Kart is a slow-moving AR ride. So I think a lot of people are already aware of that, and from it being open in Japan and Hollywood. So there's no wow factor there, right? Minecart Madness, we've talked about, isn't this massive, crazy, pushing the envelope forward coaster, even with the awesome ride system. I still think that, like, people would be like, yeah, we can just go on Slinky Dog Dash or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and be okay with it. Unless you have like a son or daughter that just really wants to go on that coaster. But again, are the parents in a buckle and then spend that much money to go to a different resort,
Right.
When you look at Dark Universe, Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment, is rated PG-13.
Wow.
Like, this ride has some actual scares. When you're looking at these animatronics and these new characters, like, they're gonna be coming after you. Like, they're gonna be swiping at the vehicles and the music playing and the fire. Like, kids can't go on that.
No.
They're gonna go to Magic Kingdom. When you're looking at Ministry of Magic, yes, it's Harry Potter, but people can already experience Harry Potter at your other two parks. And this is the weakest Harry Potter, like, in a sense, because it's based around the movies that flopped. So unless, Battle at the Ministry is that good of a ride, which from my understanding, it's not, I don't think that that's going to get families to come over either. And if it has like a scary moment with the vehicle moving quickly or rotating and it scares kids, well, they're not going to go to that park anymore, right? That's why I think that the best land in this park is How to Train Your Dragon, because it has the family-friendly coaster, and it goes through the land. It looks like a freaking blast. And then you have Fire Drill, which the whole family can go on and just shoot water at each other. Any kid's gonna want to do that. And even on the off-the-shelf ride where you're just swinging around and flipping, kids could still go on that and have a blast because they're like, "Mom, let's see how many times I can flip around." And then you have this incredible live stage show, which the entire family can do. So whenever I'm looking at Epic Universe, the reason why I will say How to Train Your Dragon, Isla Burke, is the best land is because it's the best family land. It has this very bright, welcoming color scheme, kind of like Toontown. It has the most Disney-esque vibe. And then even today, we just saw a clip of the helicopter that West 2 out here in Orlando got, and they're testing freaking baby animatronic dragons. And kids, that is that emotional attachment that we're comparing Disney to with Mickey. Any kid can walk up to a little dragon that's dancing and wiggling its tail at you and looking up and down, and a kid's gonna love this.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that Wallen Ballin, like his passion for this park is insane. But yeah, like look
Yeah.
at this. It's just like I have never seen How to Train Your Dragon movies. I have all the music memorized. I listen to the music every single day, just about.
Oh, it's a beautiful score. I love the
Yeah, but
score.
like I still can confidently say How to Train Your Dragon Isla Burke is going to be my favorite land, and I haven't even seen a movie yet. So that just goes to show that it's not necessarily about the IP; it's about what that IP evokes in you. And when I'm seeing this and the emotion that this little robot is bringing out, and thinking about the coaster winding through, and the show, and the music, and the lighting, and the color scheme, that's what I want in a theme park, and that's
Yeah.
what this land offers.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. And this is the land I was worried about initially, but you're right. It's shaping up to be the most family, like 8 to 80 kind of land, you
I
know?
love him.
Oh, yeah, this thing is adorable. Look at this thing. It's absolutely incredible. And this is actually one thing to give Universal credit. Universal is very, very good at these big figures.
Yeah.
We have one out here in California, Universal. It's like a Stegosaurus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or no, Triceratops, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Triceratops, and it walks around in front of the Jurassic World attraction. It looks dope, dude. And you know, this is another example of that. You know, so yeah, you're right. You're right. A lot. The rest of the park, though, is a lot of coasters and thrilling kind of stuff. And or really, really young, like Yoshi. There's not a whole lot of that in between. Like this park doesn't really have a Pirates of the Caribbean or a Haunted Mansion thing, right? It's very like you got the kitty
Either
stuff.
or here.
Exactly. And that is a problem. But what say you, George?
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised with the How to Train Your Dragon, because for quite some time that was always on the bottom of my list out of all the lands that we talked about. And I actually have to say it started kind of crawling up the ladder for me, you know, as time is getting closer for this park to open, because I still had Super Nintendo World kind of like up there, like, and I know a lot of people are probably I'm probably going to get the hate mail after saying this, but I actually for Super Nintendo World actually is my least favorite to go in Epic Universe. I've been in it over at Hollywood, Universal Hollywood. It's okay, it's nice, it's aesthetically pleasing for a few minutes. I'm not a fan of Mario Kart. I am very curious about Donkey Kong, but again, I'm not going to just go off of the POV, but it did question my thought process of how much I'm really going to enjoy that minecart coaster, and it didn't really impress me. And that was like my main draw into that land, because everything else is just kind of a mirror to Universal Hollywood. I mean, there's also going to be like the Yoshi people mover sort of thing, which is cute and everything, but I mean, nothing like to really gawk at. But with the How to Train Your Dragon, I feel like they're really immersing guests into the story of with the dragons and the Isle of Burke. And I'm telling you, even though that winged dragon attraction thing is very simple, man, I'm going to knock back a few and I'm just going to sit on that thing and just spin the hell out of it.
There you go. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting, and like we said, to kind of put it in like a nice little bow, we're all very excited about this park. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff here, you know, but it's not without its problems, and I think that it's good as a community to sort of address those issues, because pretending like they don't exist isn't helping Universal at all, you know. So we'll see. But what do you think, Drew? What do you think Disney's mindset is right now with this park, with Epic Universe? Like going in, we're only a few months out. You think Disney is like kind of like worried, or you think they're kind of like, okay, well, we got stuff coming out a few years after this that will kind of offset, or we're good, or where do you think they stand right now in terms of their approach to this park?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a little bit of insight into this because the CFO, Hugh Johnson, said that in summer they are expecting a little bit of a hit. But I mean, I would be more shocked if they weren't. Like, if there isn't any impact from a brand new 100+ acre theme park with all these IPs, then that would be a problem, I think. So I think that it's a good sign a little bit. And I want Epic Universe to be successful for Universal, because that means we're going to get even more. Like, you know, we've seen the rumors about Zelda and Luigi's Mansion, or Mario Party, or Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, I want all those things. So I would be more concerned if Disney wasn't expecting a hit. So there's probably a little bit of concern there. But at the same time, I think that what kind of opened my eyes to what Disney's thought process might be is this Infinite Worlds campaign, which they dropped at the beginning of the year, where they were like, we have 4 theme parks, we have 2 water parks, we have 675 shops and eateries, we have 2 water parks, we have Disney Springs and all this stuff. I think I said 2 water parks twice, but Walt Disney World, Walt Disney World has multiple worlds within this giant world, and even just like the Skyliner and the monorail and the boats. All the transportation options around Walt Disney World, Universal doesn't have that, except for the boats that go to their resorts, which people don't take advantage of like they do at Disney. It's just not talked about. So I think that there will be some concern, maybe leading up to it and when it first opens, because it's the big new shiny thing. And I think kind of like with social media, how things can feel what they aren't because it's social media, compared to the real world, like you said, with the normies, if that's what we're going to call it, or the average guest that is the one that's really spending the money at this company and not, the influencer like myself or us. So yeah, I think that there would be some at the beginning, but I think that once people see this brand new nighttime parade in Magic Kingdom, end the discussion.
Yeah, no, and that's what fans have been wanting for a long time, the nighttime parades at Disney World, and they're coming back. Yeah. They're absolutely coming back. So, yeah, no, well said, Drew. What say you, Taliana? Going into this, Disney's mindset for this park opening.
Yeah, I feel honestly Disney isn't worried about this at all. I mean, even Iger kind of addressed it like many quarterly earnings ago, where he's like, we kind of already knew what was going to become of Epic Universe 10 years even prior to guests even knowing, and Disney is going to do what Disney knows best, and that's putting on a great show. Disney knows how to do that, and a lot of people tend to forget that this is an over 100-year company that's been doing it for how long. This isn't a greenhorn company just coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to show Universal who's boss. I mean, Disney's been around for many decades, even over Universal, and it's like they know how to handle it. And as I said, I'm looking forward to Epic Universe. I'm going opening day, but I don't see it having the stigma as it continues to move along. Where, as Drew said, we'll get the new nighttime parade. Monsters Inc. will come on board. Muppets will take over Rock and Roller Coaster. They'll be like, Epic what?
Well,
Train Your Dragon who? Like, it's like, again, not saying that it would be bad, but it's like, I feel like that the leg life for it will slowly kind of just diminish.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the leg life is a problem with this park. And the problem with that is that I don't even think that, I think even the front end stuff is coming in a little weaker than I was expecting. Because I feel like there is a little bit of a waning of the hype, because as things have been trickling out, like the Donkey Kong stuff and all this other things, I think there's a little bit of a coming back down to earth with these expectations. Like the hype, I think a year ago was way stronger, I think, for this park than it is right now, just a few months out. That's just the vibe I'm getting from the community. It would be
the opposite way. You'd think as it's getting closer,
you would think
you'd be seeing a lot more people talking about it. But it's like right after they released the little model that you can see at Universal, and they announced their promo videos for each individual land. After that, it was like people really just stopped taking an interest in it. Not saying that they're not, gonna go. For sure, a lot of people have their tickets, but I mean, it's not where it's in hyped conversation of how it used to be.
No, I agree. I think a year ago the hype was through the roof, at least in our community, and I don't feel that right now, and I should feel it more right now, being that we're just a few months out. So you're in the community too. You're really active in our community and stuff, Disney Parks community. I mean, are you sensing that too, or am I wrong on that?
No, I am sensing that right now. I think that ties into the fact that Universal hasn't really shown what this park has to offer, in the sense of the 2 major e-tickets that are going to draw people there, because they're the new things that we don't see yet. Like, the ads are great. The production quality of them is great. But when I just see a family walking through a portal and Frankenstein's there, it's like, what is the ride going to be?
Right.
And I also think that Universal is still holding a lot back on the entertainment stuff like that we're going to be seeing kind of like throughout the park that could rival Disney in a sense. But again, we're 3 months out. When do you reveal that? Like, when is the like now? I feel like would be the time to actually kind of promote the park.
Right.
And like, there's a lot of rumors out there about like team member previews starting next month. So are they just waiting for like the team members to start coming into the park and then like actually showing the things in the park itself and hoping that they go viral and reaching these news outlets and the more general accounts that can reach millions outside of our community? I don't know, but again, like today, as we're recording this, Universal just announced all the food this morning for the park, and there was a lot of talk about it, but it didn't reach that national, countrywide reach that the other things did, where they were getting like 1 million views on YouTube,
Right.
and those bigger Twitter accounts that they post anything and 1 million people see it. No one was talking about that. So again, I think once we see these bigger reveals or the entertainment offerings or something physical in the park where it's finished and it's not a CGI render of we're trying to tell you what it is, but this is what you're getting, I think we'll see everything come back around very quickly once that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. What say you, George? Do you think that this is an issue kind of going into this park?
Yeah, I unfortunately, yes, and I know it sounds cliche because yes, I am Disney biased. I've said it many times on this channel, but I call it out like it is, and I feel on a operational standpoint, it's like I think Universal will probably just kind of wait as it gets a little bit closer for like the soft openings or the media kind of event openings and stuff like that, and then it'll maybe take off a little bit from there. But I mean, as I said, I think it's going to be a strong start, but I think and Universal does that well, but it's not how it starts, it's how it continues. And that's what I was saying before, like the leg life on this, I think is going to be kind of short of expectation. I think it's going to come out very strong, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and this ticketing package stuff where they're forcing you to go to the other two parks to even get one day at Epic,
it's crippling them.
Well, it is, and I said this like over a year ago on this channel, where the cannibalization is a major issue for Universal with this thing. It really is. I mean, those other two parks haven't really seen a huge amount of investment. The last big thing that these parks got was Diagon Alley, which was over a decade ago. And we've gotten things here and there. We got like the individuals, like we got like the Velocicoaster and we got Hagrid's and stuff like that. But the last big investment was over a decade ago at those other two parks. And that's why I think going into Epic, that's why I think they're super concerned with the cannibalization, because no one else cares about those other two parks, and Universal knows it.
Yeah.
And they have to have these ticket deals. Otherwise, the other two parks are going to collapse.
Yeah. It's funny because that kind of comes full circle is by the time the new things that they're planning right now open for Islands and Universal Studios Florida, all of Disney's things will be open. And then guess who's back in first place? Disney.
Exactly. Well said. Now we got one more topic today, which is Luke Skywalker is coming to Disneyland Resort at Galaxy's Edge.
I'm not jealous.
Well, yeah, I want to talk to you about that, Drew, because it's interesting how they are doing this, and it's weird. I don't love that. I don't love that at all. How they are leaving Florida out of this. But like, what are your thoughts on this? Well, we're getting the projection show. I think it's Memories of the Skywalker Saga or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then we're also getting Luke Skywalker for Season of the Force. And then on top of the fact that we still have the fireworks, the Star Wars fireworks. So it's pretty, I mean, they're stacking this land, but they're not giving any of that love to Walt Disney World. Now, I was talking to our buddy, George and our buddy Slimer about the other day, and it was like, my only theory is that because we have so many locals, they have to keep it more fresh here. That's why we get a lot of the holiday overlays as well, because when you have key holders who are going to the park like 3 and 4 days a week, we have more of those than Florida does. You guys have a lot more like once in every few years kind of visitors, once in a lifetime. Right. You don't need to constantly refresh things like you do out here in Anaheim. And again, I'm not justifying it because I think Disney should do both, but I think that's maybe the mindset. But what say you? What's going on with this Luke Skywalker thing, and why isn't it coming to Florida?
Yeah, this is where I'll play devil's advocate. And I think that they're saving these things for next summer when The Mandalorian and Grogu hits theaters, and then that's when the new not Luke Skywalker, when the Mandalorian and Grogu mission debuts on Smuggler's Run at both parks. I think that that's when they're going to push Hollywood studios a lot, because again, I'm very positive with Disney, but when I'm looking at 2026, we have nothing, at least as we know of now, right? So I'm kind of looking at the one thing that we do have, and that is the Mandalorian and Grogu mission, which is like a 5-minute long thing on Smuggler's Run. So in a sense, that makes this a new ride again for, that first ride, and for the months after. So there's going to be demand, assuming the movie does really well, because it's Grogu.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want people at Hollywood studios. So in a perfect world, I think you bring back Star Wars weekends. That's an idea I've thought of recently. Like, get all your locals out in Orlando, as well as people wanting to fly in to come to Star Wars weekends for the first time in a while. And that's where you bring in Luke and maybe another character that debuts in the movie and this projection show. I think that doing things at Walt Disney World a little bit later isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like you said, because we have, people coming in from Brazil and the United Kingdom and all around the world. And if they do it a little bit later, it's not a bad thing. So for me, being a local, would I love to have it now? Heck yeah. Would I love to go walk into Galaxy's Edge and see projections on this incredible rock work? Absolutely. But if I was like, hey, Disney, is this happening? And they were like, yeah, that'll happen next summer. I'd be like, all right, that's fine.
That's cool.
I just think that they're going to want to save as much as possible for next year, entertainment wise, because 2025 is already stacked for entertainment, literally just a couple months from now out here.
Yeah, good point. What say you, Italiano?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a great point. Yeah, we were talking about this with our buddy Slimer, yeah, he was like excited, but he was like so bitter because he's like on the East Coast as well. Because he was like, yeah, I'm not bitter at all that Disneyland, gets all the good stuff right now, and Walt Disney World's not. But I think it also goes to that I've learned this from actually experiencing the events of what happened in 2020, that Walt Disney World and Disneyland are operated completely differently.
Yeah.
And I actually got to see that through the pandemic because I had because I had the Premier Passport, where I still miss the hell out of that thing, where I could have went back and forth between Walt Disney World and Disneyland. But to be able of how to function of getting my refund back, I had to go through Walt Disney World for partial of it, and then Disneyland through the other. And that's when all these cast members were telling me, Disneyland operates completely different than Walt Disney World and vice versa. And it just doesn't go through the ticketing system. It goes also through operations. It also goes through of how things are even managed. And I feel like, to Drew's point, I feel like that's very interesting that, with nothing going on in 2026, maybe they're saving some things to kind of stretch it out. That's what I would hope. But then I also see, OG, your point, where they're, because and I hate using this term because I feel like after becoming a California local, and yes, I am a keyhole that goes every couple days to Disneyland, but I feel like that it is driven more towards locals, but I don't see it as a locals park, and I think Disney's trying to get out of that. But it's just to the fact of that a lot of people that are California local go there, consistently, where Walt Disney World, it's more of a vacation kingdom. You get the tourists, you get the travelers and everything. So it's a different demographic of how they handle things. So it's kind of like a combination between both of your theories, where Disneyland can't really afford to let things go. They have to have it right there and then, where Walt Disney World, they can kind of stretch things out depending on when things open year to year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the locals park thing. I mean, I think just we got more people in this proximity, so it's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of locals, but I do think at the same time Disney has dropped the ball with that. because they're always incentivizing locals, but they never really incentivize out of state or tourists as much. And I think if they were to lean into the tourism a little bit more, incentivize them, I think they would see more tourism. But they don't really try that hard with the tourists for some reason. They try much harder with the locals and getting them in there and the deals and the discounts. It's always California residents and what have you, So
well, do you remember several D23s? And when I say several, I'm thinking like maybe going back to like the very beginning of like D23, where all the news was all Walt Disney World, and Disneyland only got the announcement, I think, to like Magic Happens or something. Like, so it's like a yin and yang. It's like when Walt Disney World has like a bunch of stuff geared towards something, Disneyland doesn't, and vice versa. Where
even this most recent D23 was Walt Disney World heavy.
Very heavy.
Yeah.
Very, very heavy. Yeah. You guys got a lot. And it was so funny, Drew, that final announcement when we saw that magic mirror, bro. I'm like, George, it's happening. You're getting Villains Land. It's coming. And he's like, nah, dude. I don't know, man. Probably not. No. Like, dude, I'm telling you, we're getting Villains Land, and boom,
Oh, man, that
crazy.
arena erupted with it because people were actually leaving. People like they thought like it was over. That Damara was talking, like saying like, we want to thank everyone for coming on, and people were just getting up. That's why I don't get up until like something is about to end, and then you hear the music from Hunchback, and then you see like the fire coming up, and everyone just stops. And what was funny was I saw people, they just took a seat. Like wherever they were standing, like they didn't even go back to their original, like wherever there was an empty seat, they just sat down and knew something big was coming up.
And sure enough, yeah, that was huge.
But he surprised me. I'll give Damaro that one because he really surprised me, because when they made the announcement for like the Cars themed area, and then after that they moved on to Disney Cruise Line, and I'm like, oh well, Villains Land bites the dust another year. We're not getting this thing. So I stopped thinking about it. So it really caught me off guard, and I was like, no, really? Like, but yet it makes sense, because that would be the perfect project to save for like the grand finale to this. I mean, that show was like over 3 hours long. I mean,
yeah. Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, that finale was absolutely incredible.
It's this is I've never posted this, but when I took the photo of the villains announcement, Josh was directly behind the flame, and it looked like he got lit on fire.
Oh shit! Flaming torch.
You can see his shoes like right here, and I just thought that was hilarious. That as I took the photo, you don't even look. All you see is Josh behind the flame.
Oh my, that's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, that reveal was done really well, and I love when they do like those twist moments. Even how with the announcement they were kind of like it's going to be Twisted Land, and it was like a twist announcement. It was just perfect.
It was perfect, absolutely perfect. I want to ask you about that, Drew. Actually, what do you think? We've talked about it a little bit here on the channel, but Villains Land, they got to hit a certain tone with that land, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to go PG-13 with Monsters Unchained, but you definitely do want to go creepy and scary to some degree. You think Disney will deliver on that? You think they'll be able to find that right balance where it's not freaking kids out, but at the same time it's creepy enough that it's like a believable land for villains?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Disney can afford to do a little bit more of the eerie side and a little bit of the more scary side, but to where kids can still go on it, because Magic Kingdom has such a stacked lineup of rides. Also, the fact that right next door you're going to have 2 Cars rides. So it's like, if the kid doesn't want to go on the Villains e-ticket or the Villains coaster, if that's what we get, well, hey, we just opened 2 brand new Cars things right next door. So I'm kind of thinking that that's part of why they announced these together, is because if they want to lean a little bit more into the scary side of Villains Land, well, they can afford to do so because of the other investments happening at the same park. And, just like the things that we already have, like the Carousel and Mine Train, Little Mermaid, New Fantasyland, all that stuff. Yeah. So I think that my concern with Villains Land is, what are the rides going to be? Like, they're saying that we're going to have 2 grand attractions. Does that mean we're actually getting 2 incredible e-tickets? Like, are we getting that e-ticket boat ride, trackless Omni Mover in a crazy roller coaster? Because without that, I don't think this land's a success. also the fact that this isn't a 14 or 15 acre land. This is like an 8 acre land. So it's a smaller land because they're staying inside of the berm on the train track, which again, I get it. But all of the space here has to be utilized very well because it's smaller than Pandora, Tropical Americas, Toy Story Land. It's a small land. So the attractions have to deliver when there isn't as much room to tell story through the environment, which is a big part of Villains. So you've got to hit the nail on the head a lot quicker here, in my opinion. So
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think I'll feel a lot better about this land in August at Destination D23 once they kind of confirm the rides, what they're going to be. If we get an e-ticket coaster and an e-ticket boat ride or e-ticket trackless ride, then I'm on board.
You're good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, no, you're right. It's 8 acres, which is roughly half of Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a good sized land, but small compared to like some of the recent lands that they've done.
And I will say too, I mean, that's even a little bit on, short of acreage than Pandora as well. But
right.
I will say this too, and I think a lot of people tend to kind of like lose it in translation, where when Disney upfronts a new land and they say, oh, it's 8 acres, it's 9 acres, it's 10 acres, people automatically think, okay, that's what it's going to be like forever. That could be how the land starts out, and it could be like that for a good maybe 5 to 10 year range, we'll just say. But there's always room for improvement. There's always room for expansion. They could do a Villains expansion where they could eventually move outside of the berm and make it bigger. So I think a lot of people, when they say, oh, well, it's only going to be 8 acres, it's only going to be 9 acres, oh, it's smaller than this. It's like, well, yeah, that's true. But look how big Walt Disney World became when it started out. It was only the Magic Kingdom and a few hotels. And now look at it. There's 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 30 plus hotels, Disney Springs. It's like there's always room for improvement and growth. So I do agree with you, Drew, that they have to deliver that, even though that they are starting off with 8 acres. And when you're dealing with the Disney Villains, and this was the hype of not even just the last D23, but the D23 before, when we were kind of having that carrot dangled in front of us, we were thinking we were actually getting it, and it was like, oh, it's just a what if, kind of thing. But they still kind of utilized that as, wow, these people like really went nuts for this. And that's why they were able to bring it to the last D23, and they saved it the best for last. So if you're going to hype it up in that manner, they have to deliver, not just with 1 e-ticket and a D ticket. They need 2 immersive e-tickets for this land.
2 biggies, 2 biggies. Destination D23 is August. What's your prediction on that, Drew? Like, what do you think we're going to get here? Is it going to be mostly Walt Disney World, some Disneyland too, a little mix of both, or what do you think?
I think that real quick before I talk about that is the one thing I will give Epic Universe a ton of credit for, is giving us Villains Land now. Yes. Because if you go back to the original Blue Sky session, Josh said this is going to be way down the road for Villains Land. 2 years later, it's greenlit. So thank you, Universal Creative and Comcast. I appreciate you.
Yeah, exactly.
But for Destination D is doubling in size this year. We're at Coronado Springs now instead of Contemporary. So I think that the fact that this last D23 was so successful is giving them confidence to raise the bar in Florida now. And if Disney is raising the bar in Florida now and presumably charging more when tickets go on sale in spring, then automatically you have to follow up by delivering more announcements and making those announcements worthwhile. Now, we have so many projects that have been announced. That's like so easy for Disney to do at this point. All you have to do is announce updates as these things go in motion, which they are, and many are about to be in the coming months. So, yes, will there be certain things like this entertainment open by then? And will we have, things like shovels in the ground on these projects? Yeah, like things that are going to happen. And they're not going to necessarily be talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean Lounge or Zootopia Better Together for 30 minutes. But there's so many major things that have been announced that it's easy to follow up with updates on those when people are excited for these things. Like, I think it was 2019 at D23 when Chapek talked for Epcot about 30 minutes. If they talked for 30 minutes about the future of California Adventure, I don't think anyone would complain about that.
No.
Because that is going to be a massive transformation of this park in time for the Olympics, kind of like what we saw back in 2012 when the park got rededicated. I think we're going to see that again. So I think if they just lean heavy into giving us concrete information about what we just got the year prior and reiterate these are happening, we are serious about this, as well as sprinkling in the few and new things like maybe a new attraction if we're lucky, or a new show, or things around the world, then I think we're fine. So I think that to wrap it up, very excited that they're expanding it, because that gives me hope that it's going to be big announcement wise.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears, Drew. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would love them to focus a lot on DCA, give it a 20-minute, 30-minute time frame, because I would love to kind of see where, I think a lot of fans are wondering, where is Pandora even going in this park? Is it going in Simba a lot, or are they going to rip out Hollywood Land? Or I still think there's something fishy with this whole red car trolley thing. I think there's more to it than just, we got to get rid of the trolley barn, because that wasn't a huge structure. I think they could have figured that out if they really were going to keep Hollywood Land. I feel like they would have figured that out. I feel like this red car trolley situation is bigger than what they're saying, which could point to Pandora being put in there. But we'll kind of see. But I hope they announce that. I hope we get even Coco. We don't even know where Coco's going. I mean, so yeah, you could do a lot with DCA. What say you, George? You might be going, right?
There's a possibility I may see like what's going on with that schedule. So, but yeah, like I feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions from us as the fans that I think Disney could definitely capitalize and utilize this Destination D23. They can give us maybe names of the attractions of what they're going to be called, like with Encanto and Indiana Jones, maybe get some more info on that. Maybe get a little insight of what the new Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster, like maybe some of the musical stars that the Muppets will be like interacting with, or how they're going to do something of that nature. And then of course, definitely, as Drew had mentioned, like with villains, like give us like some concrete details of like specifics with that, with the Cars area. And then I would love for them to just dedicate one session, because I love what Destination D does over what it used to be the Expo, is because the Expo was a big, massive convention, where Destination D was kind of like a very subtle interpretation of that, where they have longer panels to kind of stretch out the day in a 2-day or 3-day weekend. So I think honestly that would be the perfect opportunity for them to just make a segment, 30-45 minutes, talk about California Adventure. Where's Pandora going? Where's Coco going? What is even just the future of the park look like itself? Is it going to get that infamous name change?
Yeah. Oh, that would be
crazy.
That would be crazy, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do tweak the theme a little bit, because Pandora is at the end of that 5 years. So that's kind of a perfect time to sort of rededicate that park with the new theme. It explains why Pandora is even there in the first place, if they change it to like Cinematic Adventure.
I love that name personally. I think if Disney Cinematic Adventure Park is great, but what do I know?
It's perfect, and you can still call it DCA.
Yeah.
I mean, Disney, if you're watching this, I'm not going to charge you. Just use that name.
Yeah, legal disclaimer, no paperwork needed.
No paperwork needed. Just use it. It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, George made a good point, because it kind of reminded me of something they did last Destination D. Is they had like a 45-minute long Epcot panel, and like wasn't the greatest choice of a panel in my opinion, because the Epcot transformation didn't turn out to be what anyone wanted it to be. Okay. But if they did a 45-minute long panel, right? Here's what I would do if I was Disney, Ken. Not that it isn't going to happen, but if I was in charge, I would do the 1.5 to 2 hour long Josh D'Amaro hosted presentation, right? And then the next day, I would do an hour-long presentation with the top 10 Imagineers working on all these lands around the world to then dive into what was just announced to create even more of a story. You announce the new things and people will report it as news, like myself, online, and break that news, get all the facts out there for people to see. And then one day later, you just throw another fastball right at everyone with even more details about what was just announced. For example, if you have confirmation that Villains Land is getting this roller coaster, well, then dive into the story that the Imagineers are creating for this coaster and what research they're doing, and maybe even drop a little new detail in there that they could have done the day prior, but are doing now. I just think that we've talked about it a lot, but if you make this company more personal and highlight the people that are creating these experiences and allow them to talk about their work rather than being so secretive behind closed doors in Glendale at 1401, people will come around to the company more since 2020. And if I got a Magic Kingdom dedicated panel and Zolt Horme, the lead rockwork guy, was talking about how they're crafting this rockwork to fit into Frontierland and how they're going to transition the rockwork from Cars to Twisted and Villains. Well, they're not going to talk about that during a news presentation, but you could do it separately. So why not?
Yes.
The people and the talent are there. The ideas are there. They just need the permission to talk about it.
Yes, have fun with it. Disney used to actually, the Michael Eisner years were really good at this. You know, I would watch Disney Channel and they would have like, you know, like that. There was a show called, I think it was Walt Disney World Inside Out. I think it was called, or something like that. And they would go into this stuff. They
Inside Out, you say?
Inside Out, yeah, and get into all the nerdy stuff. And I love that era of Disney, that 90s era, because there was so much behind the scenes stuff with the parks and the movies and what have you. And I feel Disney has really kind of gotten away from that, sadly. But there's a hunger for it. I think we, as fans, want to see that, you know, the process.
Yeah, what really bums me out is that we got the Imagineering series. We call it Imagineering, but they had no plan for that series, so they just stopped uploading videos. Like, they launched it perfectly with the reveal of the Tiana animatronics and the $60 billion investment, and then they talked about the music with Disney Dreams That Soar and Tiana's and Country Bears, and then they didn't do anything when D23 happened. I think they should have done a 1 hour long, we call it Imagineering thing on YouTube to reach an even wider audience right after D23 happened to kind of dive into the work being done on these projects. Like literally if it's just the Imagineers talking about the models. Like this Disneyland Paris uploaded a short video right after D23 with the Lion King model. And that was the first time that we had confirmation that this project was far in development because that model hadn't been revealed yet because the show floor wasn't open yet. It was still the day of. So all it takes is Disney talking about this stuff and people will eat it up. Like I talked about earlier, people will wait 10, 15 minutes for a pass holder magnet. Well, hundreds of thousands of people will easily watch Imagineer content.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love your idea about talking about the rocks and the transition from cars.
I have a whenever this permit gets approved for them to move forward with Cars and Villains, I intend to do something very cool with that. I just need Disney's blessing on it. So
interesting.
Yeah, but we'll see. I have ideas. It's like the Walt Disney quote. You can have all these ideas. You just need the people to make them a reality. And I'm at that point now where I'm like, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. No, that's gonna be a really fun project to watch. Yeah. Both of those, Cars Land and Villains. Very curious how that how they work that in there. And I think it's gonna be very good. I'm very optimistic about it. I'm
surprised that they didn't really make any kind of like official announcement, you know, that the permits got greenlit for Cars, because I mean it's well over the 30 days.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, what's going on here? Like, we can get this within a couple of months, or is this going to be like late this year? But I don't know.
I think that they could possibly kind of hold, even though they may have already gotten the answer, maybe kind of hold off on it to save some information.
Wouldn't that be public record though, or no?
Yeah, it's the second this permit gets approved, it's in a break. And whenever that happens, I'm already like pre-gaming what I want to do with it, because I think a lot of people are against this project. I was originally. You guys know what I said. Like,
Oh yeah.
that clip's out there if you guys want to go find it. I'm not denying what I said. For context, whenever this news first dropped, I said it was going to be the worst change in the history of Disney parks. But since then, I've talked a lot about why I don't agree with what I said a year ago. It was an emotional comment. It wasn't a logical comment. But whenever the news breaks of that permit getting approved, I think that there's a lot of things that Disney could do to make people optimistic, like you said, Chris, because the original piece of concept art they released was just for cars. It didn't show it was around the corner. So if they do an even wider aerial view with a final concept of villains like we recently got for Monsters Inc. with the exact layout, that's gonna be killer.
Yeah,
that's gonna be killer.
There's a lot of potential with this Destination D. There's a lot they can do.
Yep.
And we know Josh Tomorrow has it in him. He crushed it at D23. I think he handled that flawlessly.
Yeah, they absolutely nailed that presentation, and I'm like, how do you top that? Like, how do you get better than that?
How do you get better than that? But here's the thing. This is why also I'm really optimistic they're going to hit a home run again. There's still a lot riding on these things for Josh because, again, we talked about earlier on the show, he wants to be CEO. He's got to get good headlines coming out of this Destination D again, right? So I think he's going to bring his A game. I really do.
I agree.
And the fact that they're moving the location.
Right.
You know, they would always hold it at the Contemporary. Now they're moving it to Coronado. That basically Coronado is known for its convention area. So they have a much bigger space to draw in more people. But why? Why would you want to draw in more people to just say, oh yeah, here's our Zootopia, better Zoogether?
Yeah, right. Well, and that's exactly what they did with D23. We were worried, hey, they're moving it to the Honda Center. You better have big announcements if you're going to go big like that. You know what I'm saying? And they did. So the fact that they're moving it to a bigger location for Destination D, they're kind of doing the same thing that they did with D23 fan event with the Honda Center.
Yeah.
Right? So, but now if they really want to go big, like huge, do it at Bob Iger's house. That's even bigger. It's going to be wild. It's going to be absolutely wild. But Drew, it is always a good time talking shop with you, brother. We love having you on. Always good nerding out with you.
I love how we just casually talk for an hour and 37 minutes. Like every single time we come on to talk, we're talking for the length of a Walt Disney Animation Studios film, which is pretty crazy. Like we could have watched Moana 2 on the side while having this conversation, which is insane.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, no, it's there's so much to dive into, and we all kind of have that same mentality, like we're nerdy about it, right? So we kind of we peel things back and really analyze things, and that's what makes it fun,
Yeah.
Sorry, really quick. I just wanted to ask, being that you mentioned Moana, because
I knew you were going to say
we all kind of had like an idea that Moana was going to be mentioned at D23, but it wasn't. And especially with Moana 2 racking in the numbers where it wasn't even supposed to be a film. It was supposed to be a series on Disney Plus, and it hit the $1 billion club. And it's like, okay, well, and then Moana, the original Moana, is still crushing on Disney Plus with the numbers. They got the phenomenal live stage show on the Disney Cruise Line, on the Disney Treasure. So could they potentially have saved that announcement for, instead of saying it at the D23 Ultimate Fan Event, could that actually have been a project that they could be holding to mention at Destination D? Because chances are, I'm thinking it's going to go into Magic Kingdom probably for Adventureland. That would be my guess. And
yeah.
And of course, Disney and Iger always says, we don't build one, we build two. Could that be also a nice transition to move into the future for California Adventure?
Well, yeah, because like those rumors were very strong before D23 that we were getting this Moana attraction in some form.
Yeah.
I will say though, I am glad that they held off on it because it was a very bold choice to take something intended for Disney Plus and to transition it into a movie within like 6 months. Yes, people could say that the songs aren't as memorable. Personally, I think the songs are great. They're just different. Like it's just a different style of music. But again, the movie made $1 billion. Like 1,000,000,000,000,000,000. That 1 billion. So this gives them all the confidence in the world to click that green light and say, go for it.
Well, and that might be why they didn't announce at D23, because that was before the movie came out.
Yep.
Now the movie came out, it made a billy. Now maybe it's on the table and they're going to do it and they're going to announce it. And if they do that, you're looking at a like Magic Kingdom is going to change a lot. Like if they add that e-ticket and then you got Cars Land and then you got Villains Land, Magic Kingdom is going through a huge transformation at that point.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry, but that would be more exciting to families than all of Epic Universe.
I completely agree. I mean, you don't mess with Moana. Moana is the queen of like. I mean, come on. They converted that Disney Plus show to a theatrical and made $1 billion. I mean, that's insane, bro.
Not just that. Within the same year, the original Moana from 2016, almost a decade ago, had 13 billion minutes of watch time on Disney Plus.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable.
If I am Josh, I'll put this on record. At Destination D23, I'm either announcing some form of Inside Out or Moana attraction. And again, not an original idea by any means, but people are like, you have the wonders of life. Why not put Cranium Command, but with Inside Out, and just bring that back, but with Inside Out? But that would be an attraction that could live on for a long time with animatronics. Right. So that would count. It's got to be one of them, though. You have to do something now, because we saw Encanto get greenlit 2 years after the movie was released.
Right.
And now this would be well enough after the release of Inside Out 2.
Even if they were to kind of like tease it, like how they did at the last D23 with Encanto and Indiana Jones, we didn't get no information on it. It was just
here's the fun
concept art. Like if they did that with Inside Out and Moana, and then like maybe like give the teaser and say, well, we'll see you next year at D23 Ultimate Fan Event, like do it in that kind of play form. Oh man, that'd have people, because that way it would then solidify the fact that this isn't just blue sky. We know more about this, but we're not letting you know what it is until we want you to know.
That's not blue sky, that's blue balls, actually. That's like, oh man, teasing us too much. Teasing us. Go ahead, dude.
Even if Josh was like, yes, we've greenlit a Moana attraction for, either Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom, and it's literally just a photo of Moana on the screen and we don't get any concept art, that would be sufficient for me at this point. Because in previous years, I wouldn't say that, but right now, there's so many things in motion, again, around the world, that you can only handle so much on your creatives. Yes. And that's why I'm kind of still shocked on the fact that Hugh Johnson, the CFO, the chief financial officer, said that the back half of this 10 years of investment is going to be more than what we're getting now. I'm like, what do you guys have up your sleeve? Like how, and like, that's another thing too, is sometimes I'll just rewatch these presentations to refresh my mind of what Josh said. And at Destination D23 in 2023, when they announced the Encanto and Indiana Jones was being considered for Dino Land, like when you said, George, before we got the official concrete details, he said that over the next decade, we're going to have more projects in development and shows than ever, and you're going to see entire parks transformed. No one is talking about that.
Wow.
And I think the California Adventure and Magic Kingdom are going to be the first two.
Which then goes also back to what you and Jack was saying about why Disney hasn't decided to put Monsters Inc. in the animation courtyard.
Yeah, something big will be there.
Exactly, because like it was like, okay, it could have been easily for them to put it there, and it saves Muppets, but it saved Muppets just for that project. Mm-hmm. How much more longer was Muppets going to stay before, and I feel like they have much bigger plans because there's so much more room back there beyond Star Wars launch bay that they can do. And I still think it's quite telling why they moved Imagineering into the Star Cruiser. I don't think that's just coincidence.
Not at all.
That's fascinating.
If within this next decade we see Star Tours demolished, Backlot Express demolished, and Indiana Jones Stunt Show demolished for an all new land, in addition to a new land at Animation Courtyard, in a new land next to Animation Courtyard, I think there's room for 3 new lands at Studios, in addition to Monsters Inc. and I don't think anyone's talking about that. You
See,
take out Star
now
Tours,
that's what I call
yeah,
a real big transformation.
yeah, and that would line up with what he said because there's that land that's between Rock and Roller Coaster and Animation Courtyard too, if they wanted to transform that whole space as well.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely on the table in terms of huge transformation, park transformations. DCA is another one. I have a feeling I'm getting more and more of that vibe that this Pandora thing is going to usher in a new theme direction for that park, and
it has to, yeah,
it has to. Because think
it's
about
like the icebreaker that allows them to move forward.
exactly. I mean, you open if you do that cinematic theme, you can theoretically put the Moana ride that Magic Kingdom might get in DCA now. I mean, you can have a whole area themed to Moana in the Symbol lot. You can have Wakanda. You can have just about anything there now. So
Yeah, no,
we'll see.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think that if there's one thing that I want kind of to end our thoughts, or at least my thoughts, if there's one thing that I want Josh tomorrow to kind of like with him leaving a legacy as the park's chairman, it would be to be smart with your research and development with Imagineering,
Yeah.
but to not be so blunt like Chapek was, where it's a direct clone. What I would do is I would take all of the massive wins and the things that make sense to pull from The Lion King in Paris, but then create a new ride in Disney's Animal Kingdom next to Festival of the Lion King, but with an original story. So it's not identical to following Simba's journey from Cub to King in Paris, but you can take the same exact animatronics and the same music and some of the same projection effects, but it's not an exact clone, if that makes sense, to where you're being smart financially, but to where you're offering a unique experience to where I'm still going to want to go to Paris and see that ride, but in my backyard, I have this version of it, you know? So I think that if I want Bruce Vaughan and Demario to do anything, it would be that.
That's a great idea actually, because what you can do too is like, you know, for example, like what's Hong Kong, right, has the Frozen Land.
Yeah. Yep.
You can do a Frozen Land out here in Anaheim, but base it on the sequels, the third and fourth movie.
Yep.
So you're it's still Frozen. You're still you can still use some of that R&D from some of the animatronic figures like Elsa and Anna, what have you, but it's different enough. You're remixing it enough where it's like it's a draw for California where it's not an exact clone. So that's a great idea. Absolutely.
And one last question for you, Drew. Please don't
go
kill
for
me,
it. Never.
But what is also your take with the state of the imagination pavilion with Figment? Because obviously we know Figment's going to stick around, but like in what format do you think that they would go the route instead of putting Inside Out in the Wonders of Life pavilion? That's personally where I would put it, but I mean, could they kind of do like a hybrid with the Inside Out characters tied in with Figment? Do you see just a whole revamp of Figment, like going back to like the roots with like the Dream Finder? Or because it's like everyone's talking about it, but yet nobody is talking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see a couple of possibilities for Figment, but I think my hot take here for Figment is that the longer it takes to get a Figment attraction, that's not a bad thing, because technology is improving so rapidly when it comes to these theme parks that if we don't get a Figment ride for 5 more years or 10 more years, you know, maybe for Epcot's 50th anniversary in 2032, I wouldn't view that as a bad thing because, you know, technology is going to be better, like I said. But like you said, with Inside Out, I don't mind IP personally. Like, it just doesn't bother me. A lot of people are like, so much IP, so much IP. Personally, I love these movies and I love these stories. So if you're connecting that with
those
originality,
are the people that'll be first in line to ride it.
Exactly. And just I think a Figment ride with Dreamfinder and all the Inside Out characters would be phenomenal. Like, I think it would be better to merge them than to go solo. Would I be mad either way or upset? No, I could care less. But I think that like one of the temporary things you could do for Inside Out would be replace that Pixar short film festival right next to Figment and just do some sort of like Inside Out show right there. But if you're talking for like an attraction with Inside Out and Figment, again, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I think the biggest win where everyone would be on board with it would be to be an original Figment ride. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if that doesn't happen until Epcot's 50th anniversary and they're just maybe that's whenever, Hugh Johnson's talking about the back end, maybe they're thinking that long for Figment, like 2032 at the very end for Epcot's 50th.
Yeah, they'll be saving that with the Tomorrowland change as well.
Yeah. Well, isn't there a new Figment movie coming out, if I'm not mistaken?
It's been rumored to be like, it was like Seth Rogen's company, I think, and that was like 2
Yeah.
years ago, and no one's talking about it. Yeah, I feel like there's been so much talk in recent years about these Disney park movies, like the Tower of Terror with Scarlett Johansson, and then Space Mountain and Figment. There's like 3, and like Big Thunder. There's like 3 or 4 of them that just get talked about, but they never happen. And I'm like, the only day I'm ever gonna feel like these movies are happening is if they get announced during like a showcase at D23.
Yeah.
And then they like tie in a parks announcement to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no denying that if a movie, like if they drop a Space Mountain movie and it makes 750 million, that would very likely mean that we're going to get a Tomorrowland overhaul of both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We'll see.
Absolutely. Drew, the Disney Dude, is always an honor having you join us. If you could remind everybody at home where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yes. All right. I'm going to say it, George. X, formerly known as Twitter, at Drew Disney Dude, and then YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, at Drew the Disney Dude. That text you see bottom center of your screen looks very beautiful. That's it.
There he is. There he is. Italiano. Where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. Everybody at home, comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Luke Skywalker coming to Galaxy's Edge, Epic Universe, the future of the parks, the next 10 years. Hugh Johnson's comments, the pricing, the affordability factor for Disney parks. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of OG55. Until the next time.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.